All right, so let's jump right in. Today we're going to talk about a model called Blockonomics, and it's built on this really fascinating idea. What if the key to transforming your neighborhood wasn't about finding new resources, but about seeing what's already there, hiding in plain sight?
Yeah, that really hits home, doesn't it? I mean, so many of us feel like we can't make a difference. You feel like you're up against these giant systems, so you just check out. You get apathetic.
Right! And that's the whole point. This quote flips that on its head. It says the problem isn't that we don't care, it's that we're blind to the power we actually have right under our noses. So the very first job is just to make it visible.
So let's unlock these 3 hidden powers. The whole thing starts with this concept of a block budget. And listen, this isn't about fundraising or anything like that. It's simply about taking stock, mapping out the resources that are already on your block right now in 3 key areas. Okay, so the first power is buying power. This one is pretty straightforward, right? It's just all the money that everyone on your street is already spending. We're talking everything: groceries, rent, coffees, you name it. It's the cash that's flowing through the neighborhood every single year. Wait, hold on. Up to $6 million a year for one block? That's insane. I had no idea.
It's a huge number, right? And that's the light bulb moment. Think about it. You don't need to create new wealth. What if you could just redirect a tiny slice of that, like just 5%, away from the big chains and back into your own community? The impact would be massive.
All right, so after cash, the second hidden power is what's called influence power. Now we're moving beyond money. This is all about the political and social muscle a community has. You know, your votes, your collective voice, thinking of all that as a kind of shared asset.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. One block, how much of a difference can that actually make in an election? It feels pretty small in the grand scheme of things. That's what everyone thinks. But check this out. Local elections are often won by just a handful of votes. A single block, if it's organized, can actually make up a huge chunk of that winning margin, sometimes up to 25%. You're not a drop in the ocean anymore. You're suddenly a major player.
And that brings us to the third power. And honestly, this one might be the most exciting. It's called doing power. Think about it. It's all the skills your neighbors have, the time they can volunteer, the tools sitting in their garages, even spare rooms. It's the community's ability to just do things for itself. And the best part, you don't need to ask for permission from anyone to start using it.
And when you actually put a dollar value on this stuff, it's mind-blowing. If every household just pitched in 4 hours a month, which is not a lot, that's equivalent to almost $100,000 a year in value for one block. It's this giant untapped resource just sitting there.
Okay, so the power is there. We see it now. Millions in cash, the votes to swing an election, a ton of skills. But that's just a list. How do you actually, use it? How do you get it all working together? Exactly. That's the critical question. And this is where the model gets really clever. It introduces a mechanism called the Community Credits Engine. It's all about how needing only 33% cash can change the entire game. The central idea here is just genius in its simplicity. Normally, if you want to start a community project, you need 100% of the cost in cash, right? Well, with this system, you only need 1/3. That's it. Any project becomes instantly 2/3 cheaper in terms of cash.
Okay, but that sounds like magic. Where does the rest of the value come from? Someone has to pay for it. It's not magic, it's just a different kind of accounting. The other 2/3 is paid for with that doing power we identified. It's backed by people pledging their time, their skills, maybe the use of their tools or community space. You're valuing what the community already has, not just the cash.
So we've seen one block is powerful, right? But here's where things get really interesting. This is the 10x multiplier effect. The model says the real game changer happens when you get about 10 blocks to work together, to form what they call a super block. 24 million. Okay. Now we're talking about a completely different animal. That's not just a neighborhood budget anymore. That is literally the economy of a small town.
Yep, and the same scaling up happens with the influence power. With over 1,500 voters, a super block isn't just influencing an election anymore. They basically are the winning margin. They have the power to decide who wins.
Okay, and $1 million in doing power a year. Again, it's a huge number, but it's a little abstract. What does that actually mean in the real world? What can a group of people do with that much capacity?
This is the payoff right here. This is what it means.
If that superblock redirects just 5% of its spending, just a tiny fraction, to stay local, it can create and support over 60 full-time jobs. I'm not talking about odd jobs. I mean real, sustainable careers, right there in their own community.
So this all sounds incredible, but it makes me wonder, is the goal to create a kind of mini-government, or is this something else entirely? That's such an important question, and it really gets to the heart of it. It's not about replacing government, and it's not just about fighting big corporations. It's about forging a third way, a path where the community itself builds its own economic power completely from the bottom up. A really good way to get what this third way means is to compare it to something like the participatory budgeting model in Paris. There, the government carves out a little piece of its budget and asks citizens how to spend it. It's top-down. Blockonomics flips that completely. Here, the community starts by calculating its own budget, 100% of its power, and then decides how to use it. It's a huge mindset shift. You stop asking for a seat at the table and you start building your own table.
So if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, I'm in, I want to do this, where do you even start? What's the first step?
Well, there's a really clear pathway called the awareness cascade. It's all about the journey from just seeing the power to actually using it. And it all kicks off with that one simple act, just making things visible.
And it's a really logical flow. First, there's visibility, that whoa moment when you see the numbers. That gives you a feeling of agency, right? You start asking, well, what if we just shifted 5%? That question leads to a small concrete action, like starting a tool library. Then you get the experience of, hey, we actually did that. It worked. That success gives you the confidence for expansion, to team up with the block next door. And before you know it, you reach the final step, discovery. You realize you're not just doing little projects anymore. You're actually building a whole new economic system for your neighborhood. So, in the end, this whole thing really boils down to a single, powerful question. It's not about abstract theories anymore. It's about you. Once you realize that your street, your neighborhood, holds millions of dollars in power, that it has the votes to decide elections, that it has this incredible capacity to do things for itself, well, the question stops being, is change possible? The only question left is, what are we going to do with all this power?